Hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am Rangsook Yoon, the Director of Curatorial Affairs at Artist Naples, the Baker Museum. In this third segment of the video tour of 100 iconic works from the permanent collection, I will highlight 5 works by 5 different contemporary artists whose work I deeply admire, and all of them are created between 1960 and 2010. The first work I'd like to talk about today is this small drawing by Ruscha, titled Joe, as spelled out illusionistically in this drawing, created in 1969. This is one of the 400 significant works gifted and bequeathed by Olga Ruscha in 2013 and 2016. With her husband Joe, Olga collected an amazing collection of modern and contemporary art. Their collection became the foundation for Ruscha Museum and Sculpture Garden in Washington, D.C. Joe and Olga became friends with numerous leading American and European artists. Olga in particular purchased and received as gifts from these artist friends modestly sized and small artworks. And this particular work also shows the intimate relationship between these artist collectors and these artists. Here, Joe is referring to Joe Ruscha. What's remarkable about this small diminutive work that renders the letter as though it is made with strips of paper or ribbon is that it is not painted with pencil or charcoal, but gunpowder. Ruscha, who was born in 1937, is an LA-based influential contemporary artist. He is known for creating works based on language, very evocative use of words that captures different notions of Americana. He started his career in the 1950s, and word has always been the departure for his inspiration. In the 1960s and the 70s, in particular, he used and introduced very unusual materials that were considered traditionally non-artistic materials, such as caviar, leaves, Hershey's chocolate syrup, and coffee as the printing materials, for instance. And this drawing, made with gunpowder, exemplifies his early innovation. In 2016, Charlotte Cordery and late Paul Cordery made a generous gift of important contemporary artworks to the Baker Museum. Some of them are edgier than others, increasing the quality and breadth of the Baker Museum's permanent collection. Some of the names they gifted include Robert Rauschenberg, Robert Motherwell, John Wesley, Ellsworth Kelly, among others. I have chosen 3 pieces from these gifts today, and one of them includes this piece by Marilyn Minter. It is titled Clown and created in 2002. Marilyn Minter was born in Louisiana and grew up in Louisiana and Florida. Throughout her long career, she has investigated the mechanisms that construct cultural notion of feminine beauty, its rituals and representations in pop culture. For her inspiration, she has turned to fashion magazines such as Vogue and television, as well as Billboard. She shows how our perceptions of beauty is relied on and based on these cultural productions. She creates the works mainly focusing on women's bodies to show the beauty as grotesque and grotesque as the beautiful. This work, created in 2002 in oil and gouache on metal, not on canvas, exemplifies her signature style and how she shows her investigation of the concept of beauty. As you see here, her works tended to zoom in and have a closer view of a woman's body parts. And here we see a woman's face close up from an unflattering angle from below. And we see the nose is painted with lipstick, and the title of the work, The Clown, suggests a very her ironic take on the beauty. Her other works, like in this work, tended to show a woman's mouth, sometimes dripping gold, and other times gagged with pearls and other gems, referring to the high fashion magazine's motif, Kiss the Jewelry Lightly. This way, she makes the viewer feel repulsed but at the same time attracted to look at this work that creates very ambiguous meanings and so many responses to viewers who are used to seeing fashion magazine images that have constructed our perceptions of what beauty is. Her career was sometimes poked with notoriety, but nowadays considered almost like a godmother to younger generation of artists who have also taken what Minter has called pathology of glamour as their subject for investigation. The next work I have chosen is this mixed media work on paper by Stella. It is titled The Quarterdeck and created in 1989. The reason why I have chosen this again is that I have seen numerous visitors always stop to look at this work for a long time. It must be because of the use of vivid colors and fluorescent hues of green, red, pink, and so on, in addition to this amalgamation of swirling curvilinear forms and interlocking geometric shapes that seem to almost explode on this monumental scaled work. It may appear to be purely abstract work at the first glance, but it has a narrative content. The Quarterdeck is part of a series called The Wave that Stella created between 1985 and 1987. The work was inspired by American classical literature, Herman Melville's Moby Dick. He created this very dynamic abstract work to capture the struggle and the stories in this novel. And you will see that certain representational visual elements in this composition relate to the recurring themes in this story. First, you see large circular elements, and inside we see this abstract form that vaguely resembles a whale. And then we again see another shape, paper cut out in the shape of a whale. And then we see large fin here and curving, swirling motifs that suggest wave. In fact, waves, the great whale, and fins are some of the recurring motifs in Melville's story, suggesting that Frank Stella was responding to the stories rather than having a literal interpretation and presentation of the stories, but evoking the moods and the emotions in this saga. The title, The Quarterdeck, is based on the chapter of this novel. There are numerous elements that draw the viewer in, and we see that there are also details such as these two American flags and certain architectural elements that are shown in three-dimensional projection here. Frank Stella is an octogenarian, and he has been a very influential living artist, one of the most influential living artists today. His career started in the late 50s, and he's one of the founders of American minimalism. He is known for rejecting the traditional rectangular shapes of canvas, but from the 70s and 80s, he started to go opposite direction, what he called maximalism. The example of which is this piece. We see the use of bright colors and the introduction or reintroduction of space and depth, as you can see here. Frank Stella, from early on, was not only a painter, but also a prolific printmaker who continued to experiment with the different techniques. In fact, this mixed media work combines various printing techniques ranging from silk screen to lithograph and linocut. And then he also hand painted some part and also marble painted, as you can see here. He also cut older discarded preliminary prints to create this composition and then collaged them, showing how this artist has constantly challenged himself, just like Ruscha and Marilyn Minter in their 70s and 80s. The next work I would like to talk about is this painting by Claude Lawrence, gifted by Lynn and E.T. Williams Jr. in 2016. This lyrical abstract painting by Lawrence was created in 2004 entitled Reef Tapestry. Lawrence, born in 1944 in Southside Chicago, was a professional jazz musician for 25 years, playing saxophone. In the late 1980s, he started to paint and committed to become a painter full-time. The fact that he was a jazz musician prior to his commitment to visual art and the title itself, the Reef Tapestry of this painting, give us clues to how to see this remarkable abstract painting. To look at closely, we can see all over the canvas, we see the gestural marks made with lines that are varied in thickness and density. We also see passages of colors ranging from red, purple, and blue to light yellow, gray, and white. We experience a sense of movement, shifting rhythms and vibrating pulse with his masterful use of these lines and varying cadences of color. We can see some lines are thick and dark and black, and some lines are short and lingering and vibrating. And then we also see these red lines creating arabesque rhythms. We can almost see the artist reveling in its improvisational movements across time and the canvas. The fact that he was a jazz musician also helped us this. We can almost hear and conjure up the atonal, improvisational, experimental jazz music composed and played by, for instance, Charlie Parker and Miles Davis here. In fact, Lawrence once said improvisation to him is a way of channeling his subconscious influence. We have seen in the previous segment, ranging from Vasily Kandinsky and Stuart Davis to Jackson Pollock, how numerous modern artists in the 20th century was influenced by music, in particular jazz music, which was considered American invention and truly American genre. And jazz music, here we can see that is truly closely connected to the art, visual art created by Lawrence. Claude Lawrence may not be a familiar name to many of you. He's a self-taught artist who was very knowledgeable about modern and contemporary art, as he visited to numerous museums, galleries, and studios when he was living in New York. In fact, when he was working and living in Harlem between 1987 and 1990, he befriended numerous other Black artists, including Jack Whitten and Joe Overstreet. There has been a positive shift in the art world at large. In the past 2 decades, there has been a re-evaluation of the contributions and innovations of numerous Black abstract painters. Their works have been marginalized for a long time, as in the 1970s and 80s, there were prevalent expectations that Black artists should directly contend with the issues, the cultural themes of racial and cultural identities. However, there were numerous talented Black artists who were interested in honing their abstract style, delving into themselves and trying to express their inner emotions that are also universal in expressive abstract language, just like other artists. And Claude Lawrence is a great example. As the cases, such notable cases as Jack Whitten and Stanley Whitney, whose remarkable artworks have been reevaluated and acclaimed in recent years, I hope that Claude Lawrence's career can be reevaluated. And at the Baker Museum, we have opportunity to see his masterful use of abstract lines and colors to create improvisational artwork. Abstraction constituted the main and defining element in 20th century art, and it continues to be a major element in 21st century art. Numerous women artists have played a significant role in exploring the limitless possibilities of abstract language. And this piece you are looking at is a great example, created by Steir. And this is the third work chosen from 2016 Coterie Gifts, and the last work I will talk about in this segment of a video tour. Steir was born in 1940, and from late 1980s started to create her signature style work representing waterfall. And she doesn't really paint the paintings, but rather let paint to paint itself by dripping paints with the force of gravity. Her work is better known in vertical formats, where you see the paint drips down from top to the bottom of the canvas, suggesting and making the viewers think this is representation of a waterfall. So this work, which is over 18 feet long, is quite unusual work, in the body of Steir American artist's work. This is titled São Paulo to Be, created in 1987, as it was part of her works shown at the São Paulo Biennale, which is the second oldest biennial in the world. This work is painted in oil and gouache on paper and mounted on canvas. And it has all various techniques with which Steir is known for. You can see her the influence of abstract expressionism, but her influence and styles go further. In the late 1970s, she met John Cage, and she was deeply impressed by his Zen-inspired the notion of non-intention. And she was also very much influenced by Eastern philosophy of talking about how the effortless action, which separates her work from those of Jackson Pollock. The Taoist notion in saying that nothing is done, when nothing is done, nothing is left undone. Here, unlike Jackson Pollock, who put almost his ego just by dripping paintings and throwing paints on the canvas, Steir tried to leave herself out of the canvas by letting paint drip and act on its own and complete the work by accident. However, she doesn't believe in pure accident, but everything is pre-planned. It's a pre-planned chance, as she was inspired by John Cage. We can see her signature style brushes with liquidified and diluted paint that drips over time, as you can see. But these layers of paints are all pre-planned, which we can see. For instance, in the middle of the canvas, you see the underdrawings done in pencil. Can you see here? And then we see the layers and layers of paint that took time, probably longer than a few months, for them to dry so that the next layer of paint can be put on that layer. And here we see this black ink starting as the first layer of color, and also showing how Steir was influenced by Chinese literary paintings. She said that in an interview in 2011, when she saw Song Dynasty literary paintings, she realized she doesn't have to paint. She can just pour the paint and then capture the essence of nature. So here we see the combination of influences all come together for Steir to create her signature style. Chinese art, John Cage's influence, abstract expressionism, as well as the Taoist philosophy here. This compelling monumental work asks the viewer to have a prolonged view, walking and have an immersive experience. And the very view or the vision of water splattering as water falls into the ground comes to our mind as we start to be immersed into this painting. And also, the painting are made with different materials, and the certain black paintings mixed with a lot of oil tended to reflect the light in the gallery, and which makes the viewers to see blue colors from distance. So I'd like our visitors to come back here and just to look at this work for a long time and seeing how the painting's colors and brush strokes and drippings tended to change as we look at it in a prolonged viewing. I hope you've enjoyed this segment of the video tour of the 100 iconic works from the permanent collection exhibition. In the next and the final segment, I will explore several large-scale three-dimensional works on the Kimberly K. Quarry and Louis A. Simpson Cultural Campus of Artist Naples. Thank you.